I want double.
Yep.
Oh, you're on double?
And then today I
want
got
discussion.
we put
I was originally
I just kind of started like,
cool. Now we are.
really
developing this conspiracy. Like I swear I get something just I got something, but they I don't know what's happening. I think it's some conspiracy.
No, I'm not. Is it? No, not. Yeah.
I would spend money just like
Started? Welcome to Cyber at UC's first meeting of the spring semester. I'm super excited to be here, and I'm super excited that we had such a good turnout for our first day. And I guess I'll go ahead and give it away to Tim.
Hey everybody, I'm Timothy Holstein, Robbie, my name's Timothy though. And I'm the secretary here for Cyber at UC. And I'm just going through some quick announcements, see what's been happening. Now, if you're new, remember to join our Slack, Cyber at UC. A lot of important stuff's posted in there. So if you're really going to be part of the club, it's very critical you're part of the Slack. And yeah. Now for announcements. Now, Cyber at UC, we got something really cool, obviously. We have a cyber lab set up. We can work on all kinds of cool demos and projects and whatnot. And Ryan Young here is the head of the lab committee. So if anyone has any practical experience with setting up a lab or just wants to help out in some way, talk to him for volunteers. We always need more people to help out, lend a fresh set of hands on that.
I have another announcement for lab.
Yeah.
So right now I'm trying out something new. Every other week, I'm trying to prepare an activity where all you can get some hands-on experience in the lab. So yeah, join us next week. We're going to try to hack into a Metasploitable OS. So
What day?
Monday at 4:30. So I'll try to be in there at 5, and it'll go till 8 o'clock.
Okay. So yeah, anytime you guys want to work on something or you got any cool projects or just hang out or whatever, the lab is really cool. I know Ryan's got a lot of really cool stuff planned for us going on. So just keep an eye out for that. Merchandise, that is coming. We promise. We got cool designs. We are setting up an online shop. So, details on that to come. Next, STEM Fest on December 1st. Already happened.
A little bit old.
Yeah, it's a bit old. So we're going to ignore that happened. And then North Rage CTF again already happened. So looks like we seem to have some problems there, the announcements. But otherwise, yeah, that should be it. Just keep an eye on the Slack. We're going to have a lot of cool stuff coming in lab. And again, if anyone has any experience or just wants to chip in at all, talk to Ryan in lab.
Do you have any news about the Battelle internships?
So Battelle came and spoke to us last semester. They post a couple links on our Slack in our general channel. If you guys are in our Slack, you may have seen it. So it's essentially links to apply for their internships. I think that if you say that you are a member of Cyber at UC, especially with like Aaron McCanty and some other people in Battelle, like they definitely know who we are. Dropping that name would probably really help if you were trying to get an internship or job over there at Battelle. So that's just one of the other companies that we're working with. And then one other thing for that lab though too, like how many people are brand new? Like it's the first meeting. Okay, 2 people. All right. Well, I told you about it, but so it's essentially it's a $200,000 grant from the state of Ohio to build a security operations center for collaborating with like other schools and basically just setting up our own like cyber defense operation where we'll be able to like attack our own systems and see how to fix them and remediate them. So it's really cool. It's a really awesome project that we've had. And Ryan's doing a pretty good job. That's all I have.
All right, time for our weekly news. This will actually be more of a monthly news because we were gone for the break. So over the winter break, there was the Marriott hotel chain data breach, and they exposed about 500 million passport numbers. There was a separate article I found that there was the Department of Records basically subcontracted out some stuff, and there may be a physical copy of the entire database of passport numbers in foreign hands right now, but I couldn't find any credibility to that. so that didn't make the news this week, but there was a rumor about that. Donald Trump got the top government shutdown streak in U.S. history. We're all very aware of that. Unfortunately, the government is still closed. That is actually starting to impact national security services as well. The U.S. military expressed interest in securing supply chain attacks a lot, especially in the cyber espionage area. They're trying to protect intellectual property of our private corporations in America. So there's a lot of talk about that right now, and it's currently unknown if this will manifest as another duty of the Cyber Command Center, which I would imagine it would be, but it could also be something else happening. And also the Pwn to Own conference is a conference where attendees go and try to hack into the devices. This year we'll be featuring a Tesla Model 3. So the whole goal of the conference is to get into a device and accomplish an objective, typically on devices. This is usually like open an arbitrary web page that has your team name on it. The condition is you typically have to reveal your exploit to the vendor of that device who is sponsoring the event. I did not find the details out about the car though, so I would imagine Tesla's trying to get their exploits handled. So that's happening this month. Here's some sources for that. I don't think I included the Pwn to Own one. Oh yeah. So if you can hack into a Tesla Model 3, you can take it away. However, it will probably also been hacked into by other people, so just be careful. All right, so the weekly content is about the Intel Management Engine and other coprocessors. Has anyone heard any of these terms before? Or just get some hands? Who has not heard of these? Okay. So the Intel Management Engine and coprocessors are processors inside of your computer that are separate from the main x86 or sometimes ARM processor, and they allow typically IT controls over your computer. However, they can be abused to allow basically unauthenticated access to pretty much the entire machine. So these were originally meant for streamlining IT work on things like servers and corporate devices. For example, our servers in the Cyber Lab actually use iDRAC, which is Dell's version of remote provisioning, although it's a little separate because it uses an entirely separate system that is basically removable from the computer. The Intel Management Engine is actually built inside of the x86 processor, so you cannot physically remove it from the machine. It actually runs its own operating system. It's a Minix, custom version of Minix at least, and it basically allows vendors to sell products that can be configured over the network in a variety of interesting ways. However, if you can run code locally on the computer, even from user space, for most things you can usually interact with the IME as well. Coprocessors are different than the IME. Coprocessors are located physically on the device separate from the x86, and those are usually placed by companies that aren't Intel. The example would be, I don't really have an example, but they are known to exist. So there was a DEF CON talk at DEF CON 26 last year from another person from Intel, Christopher Dumas, and he demonstrated how he was able to access a RISC-based processor that was on old laptops that would basically allow you to have direct memory access over the entire system, which means you have a processor that he could access from user space, so any privilege level program, and immediately escalate his privileges to, it's called ring -3, but it basically means he owned the system once he was running on it. So the evolution of these processors and coprocessors, or the IME and its coprocessors, early versions started with very basic network features and firmware update functions to allow companies to address basically how to set up their servers very, very quickly over network only. So without just doing it headless. Our MOS setup is kind of an example of that, although this is a little different. The later versions started to add more complex network support, so they can also support wireless and IPv6 now, in addition to additional cryptography features. So they can actually feature TLS, and I believe they can do RSA key exchange now. I'm not really sure about that one. And they also try to prevent themselves from being accessed. So they all run their own custom firmware that has to be signed by Intel, or they will not turn on. I'm not sure if that disables the x86 processor additionally if you change the IME firmware, because I believe the x86 is dependent on the IME to start running now. Current versions of the IME have full OS independent access. So no matter what OS you put on the machine, you can still access everything on it from the IME, because it has direct memory access and full privileges. It can change privileges of programs running on the operating system, and it can basically do anything. It also has insanely aggressive self-health monitoring now to make sure that if you could, say, change the firmware on it somehow, which would basically require you to like touch the individual pins on the processor, unfold the thing, and put it back together, that it still wouldn't run. The implications of this is that you basically have a vendor-only backdoor into all these systems. Now, there are ways to go into your BIOS. There's not really a whole lot of ways to follow along with what I'm talking about today, except for rebooting your computer and going into the BIOS menu, which I encourage you all to do right now. And you can look in processor security settings, maybe. Sometimes computers don't even have the option to turn this off. It really depends on your vendor. So even when your computer, the x86 processor that is turned off and it still has power, the IME is still running. So this system is meant to be running when the computer is not even provisioned. So you could have like not even OS on the computer, and you still have a system you can access that has common, encryption keys basically. There's been no public auditing of these systems so far, just people trying to break into them. Example at DEF CON 26, Christopher Dumas actually gave 2 talks about coprocessors and IMEs and how he broke into 2 of them basically. And the first talk was really about how he was able to find one on a board and talk to it through the x86 processor using what is called model-specific registers, which are basically registers that only exist on that exact processor from that company. And then even Google, the world's largest software company in the world, is trying to find ways to get rid of these, because in their recent efforts to remove all either closed source or third-party software, i.e. they only want to run their software in their systems, they cannot get rid of the IME, and they're finding that to be a big hurdle. There's also been concerns that the IME and coprocessors are government backdoors. This stems from fears in the 90s from crypto wars. I don't know if anyone knows about that. Franco's nodding his head. It's probably, yeah. So certain, can I go to the browser on this? Yeah. So certain models of basically laptops meant for government use. How do I open a new tab? So certain vendors will target government audiences with some of their laptops. These are usually more ruggedized versions of the computer. I think Toshiba has one called the Toughbook. But basically, you could like beat these computers on the ground and they should still run. And they are additionally starting to ship with the option of having the IME disabled. Yeah. I'm trying to find the direct link. You can still actually buy these if you're a government person. They cost several $1,000s though. We'll never find this link again. But this is a screenshot from their actual website that I took today, where these are considered out-of-bounds memory management systems, or systems management. Just gonna restart it. Okay. So basically, you can pay to have the option to have these features disabled by default. So presumably, the vendors have a way of going in and getting rid of those. So it shouldn't be impossible to do on the end user area. And there's already been research, and some versions of the IME are able to be disabled. There's the current version is version 11 on the IME itself, and there are projects that work to disable that. However, it can actually destabilize your system, and according to Intel, you shouldn't do it at all. So that's really it for the prepared content. For other stuff, here's the list of, what have I done? Here's the list of versions of the AMT and its capabilities. Can I zoom in on this quick?
You can try.
Okay. Is this yours or is it?
Yes.
Yeah. So basically, you can see here the very early versions were just meant for hardware inventory, and there's some network setup and firmware updates. So basic IT functions. However, over the product lifecycle, they acquire more features as they acquire basically engineering time and value. So Intel is trying to sell a product, and that manifests in the form of adding features. So you can do Kerberos authentication, multiple mutual authentication. They have a lot of crypto features on here now. So basically, as they add more features, this becomes more of a backdoor until they replace it with a new product, which it seems doubtful that they would do anytime soon. So something interesting on here, I believe this option right here, which is called virtualization support for agent presence, allows you to reach into VMs that are running on the x86 processor and configure those as if they were the x86 itself. I'm really not sure what that means, because I haven't found any documentation. You can also do VLAN setup, access monitor, all kinds of crazy stuff. KVM remote control, yeah. You can also basically disable user interaction with the device by turning off the screen and keyboard. Can you guys see the options on here? Okay. And you can even erase the entire computer itself, or the entire disk through secure erase, or presumably some version of that that you can do really fast. You know, secure erase is not exactly fast. So you can even, if you were able to get onto someone's computer, you could, for example, put malware on there, and if they were to ever discover you, you could say, secure erase the whole computer. And then you'd have no way of being able to audit that except for maybe network logs, and if someone happened to take a backup image. So, let's dive a little further. So these are called out-of-band systems. I don't think this is what I meant to click. Yeah. So this is actually built inside of the x86, as I said. They actually physically move it around where it is inside the processor every couple versions. So it's very hard to track where it is without taking apart the processor every time you buy it. Yeah. So. And then as for research done into this, I've found the best source is a man named Christopher Dumas, who works at Battelle. I believe he works at the Battelle location in Columbus, actually.
This guy's insane.
This guy is just an absolute genius. So,
Look at RE Psych.
yeah. Have you already started these, Cliff?
What? Oh, I've started an obfuscator for sure.
Yeah. So some of his projects are pretty low level to begin with, but the project Rosen Bridge is actually what he presented on at DEF CON 26. And this is a way to basically interact with that RISC core that he discovered in some x86 CPUs. I'm not sure which vendor he said did that, but basically he went through a bunch of legal documents and patents until he found out someone was trying to hide information about these processors, and then he was able to find it just by basically brute force searching all the registers on the computer. So it's not even, oh, yeah. As you can see here, right around the second line and unlock the back door, or the first line, he actually moves, I think it's a payload based on what he's got here, which means it's a whole set of RISC instructions that this processor will run when he turns it on. And the second one basically kicks off the, he scrolled down, the second one actually kicks off the processor to start running instructions that are at a different location of memory. So he's actually able to launch a privileged bash session from user space immediately. And this is only, you know, what, 20, 30 lines of assembly. So this was actually on a processor that was not, I think it's the Skylake 2. This processor, this effect is no longer built anymore. They tightened security on them. But yeah. Yeah. So some of these processors will have the MSR's model-specific registers disabled by default, and you actually have to shove a password into a different MSR before you can even use those. And there's lots of research going on right now into basically citizen science research where people will download these projects onto the computers and try to brute force find these. I think that's Sand Shifter.
It's basically looking for undocumented commands.
Yeah, he's basically asking people to download the software and look for undocumented commands on all the processors because different vendors will do different ones as they see fit. I'm not sure if this is exactly what that project is, though. Yeah. Basically, he's going through the entire instruction set and trying to find things that shouldn't be there. So, yeah. And for the Project Rosen Bridge, was the one that we just saw earlier, where it's just a raw processor backdoor. He actually had a setup where he had 16 different machines that were interacting with each other, where he basically had 16 machines on a switch and one master device, and all the 16 would run through a bunch of commands really, really fast and then restart once they corrupted, basically. and then he found out the entire, or most of the instruction set for that secondary processor just by basically fuzzing 16 physical machines. This is unrelated, but more projects he has. It's Mobfuscator, and Reset. So we've all opened IDA here, hopefully, but he has another project which is pretty low level, where you take a program and you run it through it, and then it changes its IDA view from something basic like this to an image, which I think is pretty funny. The only downside of that is it changes your binary size to be like several thousand times what it should be. Yeah. It looks like he's actually using it for this. Oh wait, no, this is Mobfuscator. So this is a little different. Instead of making shapes out of your assembly, it only uses the move instruction for every single assembly command. So when you disassemble it, it's just a solid block. Those are the more humorous things on his GitHub. So that's all I have. Does anyone have anything that we want to look up here?
Or would you like to just explain about disassemblers? Because I don't know if everybody here.
Does anyone not know what a disassembler is here? Oh, okay. Do you have IDA on here? Whose laptop is this?
That I do, and you can just open up a command line. It's Alt-T.
Okay, I'll just run it through this.
Okay. I have no idea where it is.
It doesn't matter. It's no application. Control-Alt, you said?
Just Alt-T. And then IDA should open it up.
IDA?
Yep.
Alright, so IDA is the interactive disassembler. We actually have previous meetings that we've gone over some of the stuff for this. Although I don't think our last one, which I think was our best one, was actually recorded because we had some technical difficulties. So basically you can take a program which is machine language binary. So the raw hex commands will be running on the processor when you run it. You can open it. Cliff, do you have goats on here by any chance?
Sorry, what?
Do you have goats on here by any chance?
I do not have goats on there anymore, but Google filter env should be a good one.
You gonna walk through this one real quick?
I haven't actually finished that.
That's why I asked for goats.
So IDA has a free version, and
Yeah.
you guys are interested in playing around with it. I believe it's like IDA 7. So you could look up IDA Pro or IDA Disassembler and get yourself a free copy of this. And then there's some, we could probably post some links to some problems if you guys are interested in just, working through some disassembly stuff in your own time.
Yeah. The NSA has a similar tool to IDA, which is called Ghidra, G-H-I-D-R-A, and they've announced that it will be open source this year at the RSA conference.
Yeah.
And apparently it's very, very good, but no one's really ever seen it in the public space.
So what I've heard about Ghidra recently is that, yeah, it's an awesome tool from just people in the field that have worked at the NSA, that have worked with it. I've heard from them that, oh yeah, it's a really great tool. However, it's heavily dependent on plugins.
Yeah.
And a lot of this tool's functionality came from plugins. So they could release Ghidra, but if they don't release any of their custom built plugins that they use for disassembling things, who knows exactly how nice it's going to be. But if they do, that'd be awesome.
We'll have to see. So that will be in March of this year when RSA conference happens. I believe the person actually presenting on that gave the keynote at Black Hat last year. I'm not quite sure. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. I think that's going to be it for the week, unless anyone has anything else they want to talk about. Labs are on Mondays. Come if you're interested, please. We're always looking for folks. And if you want to get involved, please come up and talk to me or someone else who's an exec, and we will be happy to get you involved.
Yep. We have 5 committees. Plenty of work to go around.
Very true.
What about the committee for winning the next CTF?
That's just our
We
CTF
have-
team.
Did you tell them that we have a display case now of awards? And we got our first award?
Oh, well, we would have placed first in North Rage's NKU's CTF. But I think somebody used a hint and got us minus 10 points.
What?
No big deal.
Oh,
But we tied with US Bank's CTF team for I think, second place. So that was pretty cool. And we got a trophy. So we have a trophy in their lab now. And if you want to like hop on our CTF team, we will be going to DEF CON, and we only have 6 seats, 6 tickets. Paid for tickets to DEF CON, paid for hotel room, but you have to be 21, over 21, just because it is in Vegas. But yeah, so if you're interested in traveling around, going to different CTFs, we might try to go to some other conferences. I don't know, it's DerbyCon's last conference. Maybe we could try to go to a CTF there, or if any of you guys know of any other cyber conferences that have CTFs, let us know. What's up?
Don't forget, we're doing malware analysis reverse engineering online class. Like one of the days on it.
So there was a curriculum put together by a bunch of students over in Sweden, and it was modern binary analysis. It was a class basically made by students, like an organization like this, for teaching organizations and people like us about, exploiting binary, disassembly, buffer overflows, other types of vulnerabilities and whatnot. And they have all their coursework on GitHub, and we will be working through that before DEF CON. So if that sounds interesting, I can post a link in the #links channel. And then also, has everyone signed in? Because we really need to start making sure that everybody's signing in on our Slack.
The link is in the Slack binder from yesterday.
So our goal eventually, Chris, do you want to talk about your sign-in idea?
Oh yeah, so we're currently developing a solution for tracking who's coming to meetings more accurately than you filling out a form, because people forget sometimes. The way we'll be doing that is taking a Raspberry Pi, giving the 2 Wi-Fi adapters, and taking one to the monitor mode. What that will allow us to do is basically see people's MAC addresses off their phones, which is a very basic form of metadata collection. And then we'll ask you to sign in once with your MAC address, and then you'll be able to correlate you coming to our meetings. Entirely voluntary, of course, we can still use the sign in.
That's pretty cool.
If you're at all interested in learning how that works, please talk to me after this. It's actually quite neat. Okay.
Just use the sign-in sheet that was posted yesterday.
It's in general.
Yeah, it's in general. So if anybody wants to see the lab, I think I'm gonna head back over to the lab. I don't know who else is, but we can show off that. With that, I hope everybody has a good semester.
All right. Thanks for coming, everybody. Have a great week.
And you don't forget to send your shop.